SABC Sport is here as well to share what we've got coming over the next year. It's been a very successful year that culminated in the Netball World Cup as well as the Africa Cup of Nations being live on the SABC as well. I mean, the numbers for that are crazy. We are so grateful that you chose the SABC as your platform to watch all things sport this year. I mean, I was looking at the rugby numbers as well from the World Cup. Hey, don't believe the hype. We're still number one. Today, though, netball, that's coming to the SABC as well. It started, I think, about a week ago. It's the entire continent that can watch on that SABC Plus app, so you can jump on there as well. But the best experience at a sporting event over the last probably 2-3 years for me, I thought it would have been being in Abidjan, watching the final of AFCON live, right? Being there on the ground with a mic in my hand. But I can tell you now that it wasn't that. What it was this weekend's BAL, Basketball Africa League. Unbelievable experience. I've said on here many a time that I've heard since I was in high school, Northern Park High, the Globetrotters were here and would get people from, African basketball coming on. The noise that you can be hearing on and around, of course, we are outside broadcasting today, so it's part of the atmosphere that you're getting here. And I've said this so many times that basketball has been said and touted to be the fastest growing sport in
40
Africa
seconds
for so long. And I was saying, guys, I don't see the growth in this. But this weekend,
yes,
I understood why Americans do what they do for basketball. Because we got the NBA experience. The actual NBA experience. Not what we've been seeing, a couple of guys in the gym, shooting some foul threes. No. We saw actual basketball. My guest will tell us more when we come back. Amazing changes here at Metro FM. Can't wait for the 1st of April so that we can begin a new leaf as Metro FM. And of course, shortly after that is the Metro FM Awards as well. Mpumalanga, have you started buying your tickets yet? Have you saved up for them? Trust me, I don't have tickets because last year Timmy and I were inundated with people asking us for a ticket in the last moment. Andile, we don't have. So plan properly. Get out there and buy your tickets now. You don't want to miss out. Because if you miss out on this one, you would have missed out. Because last year I missed out, and I still feel bad about it. But a lot of people missed out on the basketball. And I think it's because of the sort of rap that basketball gets in and around South Africa. I always say this. Give us a call and let's have conversations about it. I know you enjoy watching the NBA. And whenever we say there's basketball in South Africa, there's an entire national league here. Yet no one goes to watch. No one is a part of that. So I'd love to know about your feelings on basketball in South Africa. 086-000-2160. It's been touted as the fastest growing sport in Africa, South Africa included, for the longest time. I've disagreed for the longest time. I might just be a changed man. But it's still got nothing to do with the National League here at home, but more so with what the NBA has come to South Africa and done. They've come here and they've said, that you see on television when you're watching the LeBrons, the Steph Currys, and the likes, we are going to replicate you. And they did exactly that. A sold-out affair, packed to the rafters out in Pretoria at the Sun Arena. It was amazing. The setup, the Jumbotron that has been brought here. We had an entire Jumbotron, kiss cams and all. But it's not for me to say. Journalist and commentator all the way from Uganda was here working at the BAL. Usher, Komugisha. Also, I call her my boy. She's a good friend. Hey.
Unjani.
Hey, but who's teaching you these things?
Hey, you don't know I'm from Umtata there.
Hey! Umtata of all places. What do they call you there?
Well, I can't tell you my name here.
Hey.
I'll write you in a message.
Are you well?
Yes, I'm well.
Welcome to South Africa. How's it been?
It's been great. It's South Africa, Zanzi. It's always family. Feels at home to be here. And obviously, having people like you just, makes the whole trip worthwhile.
I'll tell you what. I've been saying this to everybody and introducing you, and it's something that I mean with all earnesty, right? You are, for what we do, as far as commentary, journalism, broadcasting is concerned, you are the elite in Africa because you work not only for CAF, not only for BAL, not only in Africa, across the world. You're a broadcaster that when people have their wild dreams as to what they want to do one day, they're talking about your career. It's earned, Usher. It's earned.
Thank you. Obviously, there's a lot of hard work, that goes into all of that. But all the work set out, but also obviously very thankful to God for the journey, because because, as I always say, I've never applied for a job, but people come to you because you're producing quality. And for me, I think that's very important. And I'm glad that I inspire a couple of people, and just to make sure that they can dream bigger than I've ever dreamed.
Are you Pizzo Masibane's friend? Because he gave me that line. I've never applied for a job. Huh? You guys having conversations in the WhatsApp group?
Well, we can't say on air.
Basketball has brought you to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball in South Africa is, and I'm being all honest here, I love basketball growing up. Michael Jordan was my hero. The Bulls, that Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen era of the Bulls was possibly, for me at some point, even bigger than football. Because I was part of that culture. That was the beginnings of hip-hop, and TKZ in this country represented that for me. But it just, and I don't know about in Uganda, but you work with the BAL across the continent. What is basketball like, and what is the reception of basketball in the continent?
Well, like you said, it's growing. It's growing because also it's the NBA. Because when the NBA is selling the Basketball Africa League, they're selling a culture. They're selling African, celebration of Africa. They're selling fashion. You saw that when you came on the weekend to Pretoria. And that's what is part of it, because I'm a Lakers fan and obviously started following the team because of Kobe Bryant. And now obviously you have LeBron James. But, if you talk about LA and Johannesburg, there's a lot of similarities there in terms of the movie industry. So you have your Rihanna, Common, Drake courtside when LeBron is playing. That cross culture is sort of what is being focused on right now to sell the BAL in Africa. And we've seen that now with Bukayo Saka or Kylian Mbappe just dropping like in Miami or in LA to do those kinds of cross cultures. And today I think I saw a video on Instagram of Djokovic, the tennis world number one, shooting a three-pointer.
He was at the Lakers game over the weekend,
game, right? Yes, exactly. And you have LeBron, sort of praising him for that. And that's sort of part of what is being celebrated here. And that's what has made South Africa, and I dare say right now, that this is the best ever BAL event we've had since the inaugural edition in 2021.
And I think what makes the NBA what it is, and what makes it so great, of course, is what it looks like aesthetically. From the courtside seats where the Beyoncés and Jay-Z sit, to the packed stadium all around. But what it looks like, it just looks good. There's that big jumbotron in the middle. There's the scoreboards on the sides. No country in Africa has that sort of facility. Or not in Southern, Eastern, and Western Africa, maybe perhaps Northern Africa, but no country has that sort of infrastructure. So what you end up seeing is we end up getting, what looks like a gym situation with nets.
Yes, and that's what separates, the facility in Pretoria, because actually the players were staying right next to the arena, so they're going underground just 1 minute and they are on the court. That sort of, changes the whole dynamics.
To the
and
20
when you
plus
see the other countries, you have Rwanda where they've had the finals, since the very first edition in 2021. You have Senegal with the Dakar Arena, which is 15,000 seater. You have in Egypt about 7,000 seater, sort of the size of the Sunbet Arena, and that sort of.
What's the size there?
It's about 7,500.
So we had 7,500 because it was sold out.
Yeah, it was sold out, and people were calling, and because they had not, they didn't know what to expect going into the tournament. But now when the BAL comes back next season, people are going to buy tickets way before because it was so much fun.
7,500 people packed it. You couldn't buy a ticket to the basketball. Why aren't you going? What is your feelings on basketball? Let's take a break. When we come back on the other side, Usher Komugisha is still with us. Welcome to the Sports That Amplified with Andile on the Mighty Metro FM. My guest today, Africa's finest. She is what we all working to, towards, to want to be. What's the big dream?
That's a good question.
Huh?
To be honest, as a young child, I set out to do what I'm doing, but even I have superseded what I thought I could do.
So just to paint a picture, before we get back into basketball, just to paint a picture, what do you do?
Wow.
Because, you at CAF, you're there as a journalist, as everything that you can imagine. BAL, you're here. What else, and where else are you?
Well, I work for Al Jazeera as a correspondent from Africa, and also a lot of work with BBC and CNN, depending on what's happening in the world. But I call myself a storyteller. I love to tell stories. I want to tell you about Samkelo Tele from Durban High School, his journey to Cape Town Tigers, to being the
Listen.
face and poster boy of South African basketball. I want to tell that story that, no one is thinking about.
And I wonder how many South Africans right now can say they know who Samkelo Cele is.
There we go. So
How many South Africans can say they know? I was so proud sitting there watching a South African dominate. I think he had the most points on the day.
absolutely.
I think he ended up with the most points. And he's not a tall guy, but one of the most skilled basketballers on that court and the best we have in South Africa.
The very best. He's the poster boy, and you see him signing all these autographs after the game and really inspiring these young kids, whichever place they're from across the country. And for me, that is very important in terms of, yes, you talk about growing the game, but also for people to believe that you can come out of your comfort zone and go out there. He's busy training in New York, in everywhere in the USA, just so he can be that person that takes South African basketball to the next level. So that's what I want to do. I want to ask, tell you stories like what happened to Pagamani Mahlambi. I need to know, what can everyone else learn from that? And for me, that's very special.
Well, let's get back to our conversation on basketball. Basketball Africa League was taking place over the last week. That's why Usher is in South Africa. And I must be very honest. And, I doubted it. I said, oh, no, I don't think there's much in that. I know about South African basketball. I've seen what that looks like. It's not going to get support. I'm not going there. When I stood in line outside to get in, when I got into the arena, and Parktown Boys, a big shout out to Parktown Boys, were there as an entire band. Hundreds of young people, hundreds of high school kids, celebrities galore sitting on what we've seen and now know as courtside. Yeah? I thought to myself, am I in New York? Am I in LA? Am I in Miami? That's a sort of atmosphere. That's a sort of arena that we've built. It's finished now, by the way. For those that are like, Andile Warkhadisa, we're going. No, it's finished now. It finished on Sunday. Talk to us. What is BAL? Why is it here for such a short time? Is it the first time in South Africa? And I asked these, what sounds like preliminary questions, from preschool, but we don't know about basketball. We don't know how big it is. We don't know how exciting it is. And it takes more conversations like this for us to get there.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, because in South Africa, you're talking about the Springboks, winning the Rugby World Cup. You're talking about the Proteas, the netball team, of course, Bafana reaching the semi-finals of the AFCON. And you have, some hockey there, some swimming at the Olympics coming up this summer. But basketball has a place in South Africa, because that the NBA Africa office has been here for more than 10 years. So here is home for the NBA more than anything. The only game that has been hosted by the NBA, in Africa has been here in South Africa, and sold out crowd, absolutely. And so for the Kalahari conference to come here is a huge deal. And just to explain to everyone, the Basketball Africa League is, in football terms, what you'd call the African Football League. So it is the interclub competition of the continent, where you have all the champions from 12 countries. 6 countries don't have to play qualifiers because they're class of the class, like you have in cricket, India, South Africa, New Zealand. You don't have to play qualifiers to the World Cup. So that's the sort of thing. Then the other 6 have to play qualifiers, including the Cape Town Tigers. And that's what they call the road to the BAL.
Okay.
So those 6 countries join the other 6, and they make this year 3 groups. Initially, it was 2 groups in 2021, 22, and 23. But initially, 21, they played in Rwanda because it was the bubble, COVID-19, all of these things. But 2022, they go to Dakar in the Sahara Conference and the Nile Conference in Cairo. As you can see, they're trying to celebrate Africa by the landmarks that we have on the continent. So here you have 4 teams playing, and the top 2 qualify for the quarterfinals in Kigali. But now, there's rumor on the street that maybe the finals could come here next year, because the atmosphere, incredible. And you talk about courtside. I mean, looking at people like, Paul Tusi, Shama Josie, you see the Beast and I, Jeremiah Owusu, for those who follow the NFL, courtside. That's huge. And that's what it's all about. The fashion, the culture, the music, the artists, and you yourself, of course.
I know. No. I'm a sports guy. I don't do the celebrity life. I'm just a sports guy there to watch some basketball.
Well, you'll tell that to those living under a rock.
I'm just there to, to support the sports on the court. Now, the level, because yes, it looks great. It looks like it does in the NBA. You've got a dope DJ. You've got the music. You've got the culture. You've got the celebrities. So all of that is check. What about on the court? how do we, as South Africans, for the Cape Town Tigers representing South Africa, of course, how do we measure up as far as basketball is concerned?
So as you can imagine, South Africa not really being a basketball nation, as you already said, but of all places, Cape Town. So I know that there's a group of Americans that came on board, of course, with a couple of other Africans, to invest into the Cape Town Tigers. One, because it's obvious, it's Cape Town. Cape Town is known globally, and then you have an investment group that is investing in this team to say what can we do from a sports business perspective to build a team and then see how it can play in the BAL. Obviously, it's still early days, and especially this season they struggled. This is their, I would say, their worst performance as a team, because last year they did very well. They qualified for the quarterfinals. Now they have to wait for the other conferences to play to know what's happening. But you can see that there's something, that is happening there. And they're bringing together the best talent in Africa. And the setup of the BAL is that you have 8 local players, and you can have 5 players, or at least 4, from Africa and the world. So
last season we had I think it's Zion,
yes,
who's Dwayne Wade's son, who is playing for the Cape Town Tigers.
Absolutely.
So that's the sort of thing you can get from wherever it is in the world, whoever can play.
And that's what basketball does, because if you have Zaire, you have Gabriel Union and Dwayne Wade courtside. In terms of marketing the game, that changes a lot. And in season 1, you had J. Cole playing for the Patriots in Rwanda, and they're coming from practice, and Steph Curry, who had just lost an NBA playoff game, and they were out calling him on Instagram Live and saying, "Yo, I see you serious. You're playing basketball." Like, that's already
J.
merging.
Cole, the rapper?
Yes, the rapper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he played for the Patriots of Rwanda. So you get the feeling that that's the cross culture we're talking about, music, and maybe one day, maybe Hove could play for a team in South Africa.
We're speaking about all things basketball. Basketball Africa League took place in South Africa, Pretoria to be exact, over a period of a week. It ended on Sunday, and the sort of infrastructure that was brought in order to have it be as successful as it was is something we don't see often. So what happens now? Do the NBA guys come in and pack everything up that we saw, put it in a truck and move it along, and then we back to what?
Yes. First of all, yes, that's what happens. But also, I know that there's conversations with Basketball South Africa to see how can they grow the league. How can the NBA support the growth of basketball in the country? It's not easy. There has to be a lot of commitment, not just from the federation, but also from the government, to make sure that you have facilities. For example, the Cape Town Tigers, they train and practice in Johannesburg, because there's no facility in Cape Town where a team of their
but also
stature
the
can
facility
train.
in Johannesburg is a great training facility. It is not an entertainment mecca, because at the end of the day, basketball, like any other sport, is entertainment. And what we have here does not allow for entertainment, for it to be as what it was, the atmosphere creation. We don't have a basketball stadium, not even one.
Yeah, and that's a problem, because when you look at even the other teams that are playing in the BAL, they're not at the same level. Because when you talk about big teams like Al Ahly, who are the current champions of the BAL, their infrastructure is crazy. You're talking about infrastructure for more than 100 years. And then some teams like, for example, Stade Malien from last year were playing outdoor. They practice outdoor. If it rains, they have to wait. If there's a sandstorm in the Sahara Desert, they have to cancel practice. This is the reality of the game across the continent, and that's why there's conversations between leadership and the NBA. Amadou Galofal has been doing this for more than 5 years, to say and meet presidents of countries alongside the UN General Assembly. It happens every year. They're having these conversations, and now in Kenya, for example, William Ruto has already had a conversation about building an arena. There in Uganda, Museveni has agreed to build a 10,000-seater stadium. In Lagos, there's a private company that is setting up a sports and entertainment arena, so that they can change that. Because how can big countries like this not have arenas?
We don't have an arena for basketball, and perhaps that is one of the first problems that we have. It's moving along now, leaving South Africa. Like I said, it's literally packing everything into a truck and putting it on a plane and off to, I think it's Cairo up next?
Yes, Cairo is up next from April the 19th to 27th, then Senegal from the 4th to the 12th, and then Kigali May 24th to June 1st.
Football is an equalizer in that it's one of the few sports that can take you from wherever it is that you are. It doesn't matter if you're growing up in a house where plastic cups are the prized possession. It doesn't matter if you eat once a day and your walk to school needs to go via the herd of cows that you need to leave emadlelweni, you know. It doesn't matter. Football is an equalizer, and we've seen it time and time after again, where a Nigerian, a Senegalese, a South African, an Algerian can leave that sort of condition and immediately be infused into some of the biggest and best clubs in the world. Where do Africans then, because I don't see enough Africans in the NBA for me to sit here and say this is an African sport or can be an African sport and we that talented. Are we just not that talented?
To be honest, talent has never been a problem across any sporting discipline in Africa. The issue, as we say, is facilities. However, there's some work being done across the board because when you
Asha,
see...
I mean, you've got Nigerian boys that have never seen grass. You know, they played on South Africa as well. You know, you watch some of our tournaments in December, you know, guys play and, you know, only those that make it to the final get to play on grass. But those boys, those guys still make it all the way to the top of the trees. So, yes, facilities are needed, and I agree with you 100%. But if we're talented enough at bouncing a ball and being able to hit the threes, being able to do the alley hoops and the dunks, surely then there should be a lot more recognition of talent in Africa. Are we just not there?
Well, there's resources and then there's facilities.
Okay.
I just posted a picture on my Instagram of Kaman Malwash, who is a 17-year-old South Sudanese player. He's 7
Jeez,
foot
he's tall.
2
Met him on the
inches.
weekend.
Yes, incredible guy. But he's grown up in Uganda since he was 2. And somewhere about 2019, someone tells him, you know, you're so tall, you should play the game of basketball. And he said, you know, how can I do that? And just 4 years ago, he starts to play basketball. And now he's projected as top 5 for the NBA draft next year. Just playing basketball for 4 years. And then you have Ulrich Chomche from Cameroon, who's, you know, being said as the next big prospect out of Cameroon after Joel Embiid, who was the MVP of the NBA last year, you know. So these are things that talent is not a problem. And these kids have gotten an opportunity to play in the NBA Africa Academy in Sali, Senegal. And, you know, you have Joe Tumo, who is the guy who saw Joel Embiid train them. So the issue is not talent. The issue is, can we have facilities? Can we have these tall players, and even if they're not tall, have the education that they need to get to that level? It's not a problem. Joel Embiid himself, he started to play at 16 years. But how about if he starts playing at 3 years old? So this is not an issue. If you go to South Sudan, I'm telling you, everyone is 7 feet. Everybody. Especially like in Lake region. So playing basketball is not a problem. They could do this in.
Well, you've
in,
got
in a
right now.
minute.
You've got a French boy, who's the star of the NBA, Wemby. You know, he's a tall boy, he's lanky, but of course he grew up in one of the best probably schools of sport, which is the country of France. You know, in terms of having facilities, talent identification from an early age, and grooming, etc., etc. But he's gone there. He's got the height, and he's of a lighter hue, but he reminds me of a lot of the Sudanese guys in the way that he is structured, in the way that he looks. But I'm not seeing enough. I mean, Boy as well was another one, you know. But I'm just not seeing enough African talent in the NBA. We speak about Ucele, you know, a phenomenal player. We saw him on these courts. He was dominant. I think 25 or 26 is what he hit just on this weekend alone. But he's not in the NBA.
Well, what the BAL is also doing now, because you asked about continuity.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, maybe the Cape Town Tigers don't qualify for the playoffs in Kigali. There's a program to have a couple of players go to the NBA Summer League, where you have scouts from the NBA teams come and see some of the talent, because that's where they could get some of their players. It's not just about the draft. So he could have a chance, you know, if the scouts and the technical team around the NBA look at him and say, we think we like what he's doing. And that's also one of his targets, I can say. But at the end of the day, you talk about African talent in the NBA, there's actually a lot of it. You know, Jonathan Kuminga, about 6 years ago, I was interviewing him in Kigali at a small tournament, and now he's playing with Steph Curry, you know, with the Golden State Warriors. So the issue is not that. The issue is, can they be in a position where they can have the skills, you know, to be here? I mean, get a player who's 10 years old from South Africa or Uganda or any country, take them to Clairefontaine in France, the French Football Academy. in 7 years, they'll be world-class players. So how can we bring this into South Africa? And I know you have a sports, a school of excellence, and you've seen the products that are coming from there. But this has to happen in every province for it to be, to come to the world-class level.
It feels like you growing up eating just pap every single day, and then one day somebody gives you this thing called rice or macaroni or noodles, and you're like, yo, and then they're gone. That's what the BAL feels like. It's brought state of the art to South Africa for just that 1 week, and then now they're packing it and going. And I wonder how much of growing the game that's going to do in this country, because you're here for a week, you give us exceptional entertainment, because unlike anything else, football, you go to the Soweto Derby, amazing atmosphere, but football doesn't allow for the sort of socialization that you get, and both you and I work in football, at the highest level. It doesn't allow you for the sort of socialization that you get at a basketball game, because there's timeouts, there's all sorts of things. There's also just access, where the players are right here. You can have a chuckle with a player during the game, which are forbidden things in our football.
Yeah, I remember, I think when LeBron James, made the record of, I think 40,000 points or something in the NBA, and they literally had to stop
over
everything.
A week ago,
they
the
had
40,000.
to kind of stop everything just to celebrate him. You see, that cannot happen in football. Like, Messi has scored, the first hat trick in the second half of a game, so let's stop the football game, you see. So, but what I'm trying to say to answer your question is the continuation. There's actually a lot of programs that the NBA does in South Africa. Royal Bafokeng, there's a lot of basketball programs there. You have the Basketball Without Borders that happens in South Africa every year, where you have the top talent coming from all African countries to practice here. All of this is to inspire these nations, but the bridge is the federation has to do a lot of work. The basketball South Africa, they really have to do a lot of work, because I'm told that high school basketball in South Africa is huge. The numbers are insane, and we have to transform that to the league, to the BNL, and they have to be able to take that and know that basketball is competing as a source of entertainment for the other events. So you have your rugby is happening. I was looking for tickets for the Springboks game, in July, I think, in Durban. Gone in 5 minutes.
Forget it.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, if the tickets are there and they're gone in 5 minutes, you need to be able to do the same for basketball South Africa. People need to buy tickets. People need to buy into this as a source of entertainment. This is a business.
Yeah.
You can't treat it like, oh, we're helping these guys to come and watch the games. No, you need to give people entertainment. Bring DJs and learn from what the BL has done so that you grow the game. It can't just be words, and conferences and all these things.
We're going to take a break. When we come back on the other side, we are trying to grow the game of basketball, but also support and grow the game of netball. Netball South Africa President Cecilia Molokwane, a favorite here on the show. She's a friend to the room, joining us now. Cecilia, always great to have you. Would have rather you sitting next to me, but nonetheless.
Andile, how are you this evening?
I'm always good. I'm sitting with an enemy here.
Who?
I'm sitting with Usher Komugisha from Uganda.
Hello, Cecilia. I'm not an enemy. Please tell him.
No, Uganda, not after the World Cup, Cecilia.
I don't have enemies in sport. I only have got people that I compete against.
No, nakasakwatile, Cecilia.
No, you can't be. You can't be. As sports people, we don't make enemies, and we get over the issue, and we go back to the drawing board and say, what did we do wrong, and how can we go and make it better the next time?
Well, the one thing that we're doing in making it better is making it accessible to everyone, Cecilia. I saw the partnership that you've gone into with the SABC. I've been watching on the app there, the SABC Plus app as well. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We said this is African netball, and we've got African countries, and we want that little girl, at the rural area to watch a girl of her age. Jade Atkins, who's playing in the tournament. She's a matriculant. She's a girl who's in matric. And she's giving our young stars and Carla Victor. They're matriculants. They're giving other youngsters that hope of saying, I can be at school, I can play at this high level, I can actually make my country qualify. So netball can actually put me where I never thought it would. And, you know, the two young girls I'm talking about, in the past 2 years, they played in Region 5 in Lesotho and in Malawi last year. So to me, it shows that we want the public. Remember, SABC is a national broadcast, so it's free to air, and a lot of people can see this. That's why we even said to SABC, when the baby Proteas are playing, please make sure that it's live in one of your SABC channels. And it's like that on SABC, it's live when the baby Proteas are playing. And it encourages the young ones to say, you know, if they can do it, we can do it too.
I mean, amazing. I watched, I think it was the match against Tanzania, but then I saw the results against Zambia and Zimbabwe as well. Precious Mthembu is really doing well with this team.
Really doing well. You know, the girls are hungry. I mean, I was saying the last time they played an international game at this level was in 2017 July. I was not even the president of Netball South Africa then, you know, and I was like, what are we doing to the youngsters? We say we want to have a player's pathway, but are we doing the correct way, the correct thing in giving them that pathway? In 2021, they were supposed to go to Fiji, and it was cancelled because of COVID. And then a bit, you know, I want to blame myself as a leader. I will always want to take the fault when I see it, and I don't want to blame people because, you know, they say the fish rot from the head. And we forgot about a bit about them because we were more focused on the World Cup and on the Spa Proteas, forgetting that these Spa Proteas are fed by other teams. You know, we were focused on Spa Proteas, Fast Five, Presidents of, but forgetting about where it all starts. You know, development. Even though we had TNC that we play in the telecom netball chains, that we play with the collaboration with schools, but we still needed to give them international exposure. That's what I'm saying on that one, Andile. I need to take the blame as the president to say we should have looked at it another way, but it was an eye-opener. From now on, I know that we should actually treat all the teams the same and give them the same exposure everywhere all the time.
You know, as you say this, I was having a conversation with Usher here about the Basketball Africa, of course, that was happening in Pretoria. It reminded me of the facility that we had in Cape Town during the Netball World Cup. And it reminded me of the promise to create that sort of platform, to create that sort of facility moving forward, because it is so important. A facility like that allows for supporters to enjoy the game a little bit more. I think it was the president, if I'm not mistaken, who made that promise. How far are we from that? Because to watch it on television, Cecilia, when it looks good, adds to its phenomenon as well, adds to its marketability as well.
And if you can remember how we turned City ICC into an arena, a beautiful world-class arena that people never thought that, you know, when I went there after 5 days, now I was like, was this arena here? And yes, it was there. And to me, we have that thing. And I was saying, we had the Premier of Gauteng raising his hand to say they want the arena in Gauteng. And we went to his office. You know me, when you don't talk and you think Cecilia will sit aside and watch you and say you've just talked, I'll go to you, because they say you go to the mountains don't go to you. I went to his office and said, Premier, you raised your hand. We did not approach you. You raised your hand to say you want this arena in Gauteng. And I said to him, first things first, you cannot talk about building a house for me when I don't have land. Give us land. We are on that process of doing the land issue. I want to compliment the Gauteng government, you know, for keeping their promise when it comes to that. I cannot be sitting here. You know me, Andile. When it's wrong, and I'll say it the way it is. But this time around, I want to compliment them to say that we asked him that we must go and do the feasibility study first to see what kind of an arena we want. And we know in our minds, in our heads with the CEO, what kind of an arena we want, that we want them to sit with the engineers of theirs to say, where do we think it can be and how it can be. We have been given 7 sites to go and view, and we will be doing that soon. I think now they are swamped with the election things, and we sit aside a bit and say, let it be. But we already had meetings, and I cannot be sitting here and say nothing was done. No, something was done, Andile.
I mean, I'm very happy to hear that. Often, promises made in an excitement of a tournament, but I'm more excited about the fact that from what because I thought to myself, wow, Uganda and what they do, and South Africa, the rivalry between those two would be great if people had access to this across the continent. And I'm hearing it's possible through the SABC Plus app. This is going to be showcased throughout the continent. That is big for those young girls.
Let me say thank you to the SABC, sportswoman. I call her the sportswoman, Auskeleto. I mean, she understood us. We said Africa doesn't have money. You don't even go there and say we do this and that and that. We are the mother to Africans. And that's why when they gave us, Andile, you'll be shocked, they asked us this thing in December. They wanted us to deliver in March. And you ask yourself, who can deliver in 3 months a tournament of this magnitude? And they said, you are our mother. We know you can do it, and please do it for the young ones, for the player. And always, Andile, even if you see me not sleeping or fighting people or trying to get something, it's because the core business of netball, even of basketball, as a sitting with Usher here, you must tell her that I'm saying the core business of any athlete in any federation is not us and our egos, but it's the athlete. If you think about the athlete and that you want to do it for the athlete, then I respect you. But if it's about your own ego and other things, you lose my respect. So to me, I was thinking about the athlete. Andile, I was touched by other athletes when we welcomed them. They said to me, President, you know that it was for the first time that I was in a flight and I couldn't even, fasten my seatbelt. It humbled me to say what sport can do in changing a young girl's life. And she will understand that she has to go to school and study. She has to play the sport, and she must leave boys alone so as she doesn't have a kid early, and then she must stay out of drugs. Those are the things that they now understand that sport can change your life. And that's what humbles me. If I do it for the player, then I'm happy.
It's so interesting you say that, Cecilia, and thank you for bringing light on that. I remember there was a tournament in Malawi for netball, and our Ugandan netball
Let's
team
close off with
had
Betway.
to travel for 3 days in a bus. 3 days in a bus, 72 hours, just to go and play tournament. And I know of even the women's football team have played at the COSAFA Women's Championship in Port Elizabeth, and it's the first time they'd ever stayed in a 5-star hotel. That's the reality.
That's the reality of women's sport, and that's why we do all we can here, at least, to try and put emphasis on light. I mean, Cecilia knows. I always ask her, hey, are the girls getting paid yet? And I cannot begin to sit here and not acknowledge what Cecilia has done. I mean, from the professional contracts that the girls are getting to the exposure that we're seeing, and then, to have the assistant coach of the Spa Proteas be who it is at the moment, when you know the journey of black players in particular in netball, it has been absolutely wonderful. Cecilia, listen, I don't do it enough, but I need to give you your flowers in leadership in sport and acknowledge when you're doing well, so that one day when I'm not happy, I can come back to you again and say, hey, Cecilia, now I'm not happy. But I can't do that in a vacuum when I've never come to you and told you that what you've done for young women in this country, what you continue to do, has been absolutely amazing. And, I wish that we could all share a little bit in your dreams for them. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you get better. I know you're feeling a little under the weather.
Thank you so much. Now you're telling people things that they shouldn't know. Thank you so much.
She's out of here. It's Cecilia Molokwane, President of Netball South Africa. And thank you so much for pulling through. Thank you so much for coming to sit with me on South Africa's biggest platform for all things sport. I appreciate you.
Ngiyabonga.
Chovicho. Asha Komugisha, follow her on all social media. She's got to get out of here. From myself and my entire team, Malcolm out in studio, thank you so much for holding it down. Tabunkwala, forever grateful for the work you do. Olepara, pela pela. And so me.